I'm not a lawyer, but the ASAP Rocky case has finally gone into the hands of the jury. So let me catch you up on the last couple of days, and then you can tell me your thoughts on what the verdict will be. So the last witness to testify in this case was ASAP Rocky's tour manager, ASAP Lou. And while he was on the stand, he confirmed that the prop gun that ASAP Rocky used during this incident was modeled after a Glock 26.
Now the prop gun that you've been talking about, what type is it, or was it?
It was a Glock 26.
Following that testimony, both the defense and the state stipulated, or together agreed to the jury, that a Glock 26 prop gun ejects shell casings when it's fired, and that the casings that ASAP Relli turned into the police did not come from a prop gun.
Listen to what he's going to say. This has been agreed to, stipulated. Go ahead.
The people in the defense stipulate that the prop gun testified about in this case would have ejected 2 fired cartridge cases as it was fired. The fired cartridge cases previously marked as People's Exhibit 32 were not fired from a prop gun.
Now let me tell you why that matters, or why it could matter. Because all throughout the trial, ASAP Rocky's attorney emphasized that 7 police officers searched the area of the incident thoroughly and didn't find any shell casings. Yet, when ASAP Relli returned to the scene after the police officers, he was able to find 2 shell casings.
Evidence will show you that well before Relli returned to the area, 7 police officers, like a SWAT, 7 police officers arrived at that same spot. They responded to the scene and carefully searched every inch of that area. I could not believe what I heard. Police searched the exact same spot where Relli claims he picked up the bullets. Not close to it, not near it, the exact same spot. Okay, right here. Look at where they're searching. This is where Relli, as he comes back an hour later and picks it up. And so, what the police officers searching that scene found were no shell casings, no bullet fragments anywhere, and they were there. 7 officers with flashlights searching everywhere. No shell casings, no bullet fragments, no damaged property, no sign of a real gun being fired. As one of the police officers on the scene said, I repeat that, one of the police officers on the scene said, there's no evidence of a gun being fired. Just a couple things. This whole line of questioning about the possibility that you may have missed something, you're not trained to miss something, you're trained to find things, correct? Correct. All right. And after responding to Reese Del Mar and Selma Avenue, and carefully searching the scene with your fellow officers, you found no physical evidence of a shooting whatsoever.
That's correct.
And of course, to be clear, that includes no evidence of a shell casing recovery, correct?
Correct, that includes that as well.
Thank you very much.
But now that we know that ASAP Rocky's prop gun would have also ejected shell casings, and both the state and the defense agreed that 2 shots were fired, Rocky's team says they were 2 warning shots from a prop gun, and the state says they were 2 actual shots from a real gun. The question then becomes, if it's ridiculous to think that the 7 officers missed the real shell casings, is it also ridiculous to think that the officers missed the prop shell casings? Both sides addressed this in closing. Here's what the state had to say.
Lou was very clear that the fake gun that he alleges that the defendant had was modeled after a semi-automatic pistol. That's Lou's testimony. And here's where it becomes painfully obvious that Lou did not fully think this through. If you accept that the defendant had a fake gun that Lou just described, you would also have to explain why there are no fired fake prop cartridges at the crime scene. Because the gun that Lou described, this prop gun that existed, that's a semi-automatic prop gun, would operate just like a real semi-automatic pistol. And it would shoot those cartridge cases out the side just like a real gun would. So why are there no prop cartridge cases found at the scene? In his opening statement, Mr. Tacopina made a big show of pointing out how 7 or 8 LAPD patrol officers scoured every inch of that street of Vista Del Mar. They walked up and down with searchlights, and they didn't find anything. They definitely did not find any prop-fired ammunition. But he forgot that if the police are as thorough as he's saying, that they also would have found the ammunition from the defendant's hand. That painfully contradicts their own defense in this case.
And now here's what the defense had to say.
That prop gun ejects blank cartridges. And bear this in mind, this is important. This part is important. The police came looking for evidence of a shooting. They were looking for those steel metal jackets, those shell cases. There was zero evidence on this record. Zero. I defied them to say, show anything on this record whatsoever regarding what those blank cartridges looked like or how they were ejected from the product. There was zero evidence. There was no evidence whatsoever regarding what blank cartridges looked like or how they were ejected from a product. No evidence of what they would look like, okay? There's no evidence regarding what material those blank cartridges would have been made of. You heard about paper and plastic from Lewin. Paper and plastic, or how far or in what direction they would have been ejected, there's no evidence of that. Or whether they would have still been intact or not. In other words, there's been no evidence whether the blank cartridge from Rocky's prop gun would have been observable to the police as the shiny metallic shell casing from a real firearm. No evidence of that. In any event, the police found nothing. No evidence of a shooting whatsoever. No bullet holes, no blood, no damage to any one of those cars, and of course no shell cases.
So maybe this is a big deal for the jurors, maybe it's not. What y'all think? Next up, let's talk about the very, very, very long closings from day 12 and day 13. As an FYI, prosecutors get to do 2 closings because they have the burden of proof. Mr. Przelomiec on the state side does the first close, and he focuses on one question. Is the gun real or is it fake? By the way, Rihanna brought the kids to court, so if you hear sounds in the background, it's the kids.
This is not a difficult case. The question for you to answer in this case boils down to really just one question. There's only one important question in this case, and that is, did Mr. Mayers, the man at the table, did he use a real gun or did he use a fake gun? Was the gun that Mr. Mayers pulled out of his pants, pointed at Mr. Ephron, a real gun or a fake gun? Was the gun that Mr. Mayers turned around and pointed at Mr. Ephron and fired twice at that corner of Selma and Vista Del Mar, was it a real gun or a fake gun?
He also addressed Relli clearly wanting to be paid.
Now, you're not going to hear me, and you haven't heard Mr. Lewin or I throughout this case tell you that after this crime happened, that Mr. Ephron did not think to himself, I want to be compensated for what happened to me. Like, we told you at the time, Mr. Ephron filed a lawsuit. Mr. Ephron wants money because of what happened. Mr. Ephron wants to be paid because he was the victim of a real crime by a real gun.
And mentioned that ASAP 12E's answers seemed rehearsed on the stand, and you know he reminded jurors of that don't answer that comment that Rakim made in open court when 12E was on the stand.
And you, I'm sure, as you listened to his testimony, when he first started testifying, you had to think, this sounds like something that's been practiced. This sounds like a man who's repeating pre-programmed answers to him. It came off very robotic. I don't have to tell you he was coached into certain answers because you saw it for your own eyes in court. If you didn't see it, you heard it. When 12E's asked a question, what is awe? That's kind of a mundane, really seemingly insignificant question. What does the defendant do? He screams out, don't answer that. He's literally coaching him in court in front of you. And what's 12E's response? My brother's company? Man, I don't know. I can't say.
Now, in regards to the phone recordings between Wally and Relli, the ones Relli said were AI, Przelomiec says that those are some of the most important evidence in this case.
And some of the most important evidence that you heard in this case actually came from those recordings. Those recordings are very important because Mr. Ephron does not know he's being recorded. He thinks he's talking to his friend. He has no idea that this person is betraying him, recording him, and then immediately turning their conversations over to the defendant. These are his unfiltered, unprepared thoughts. But what he says to Wally in those recordings is exactly what he told you here in court.
He didn't have to do what he did. I don't have, he forced my hand, you feel me? I got over 20 missed calls between 10 bills. Why is Rocky going out of his way to do anything like that? You get what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you didn't get a story or whatever it is, but you gotta look at it like this. Why is he going out of his way to call me 20 times? I know some 12 with him, text messages saying link up, where you at? And all of this is because of, I pressed him about Josh, him not doing right by Josh, and he spoke to Josh long and live. You get what I'm saying? He called me out my living space. Called me, told me stop ducking him. He He played that. That's called premeditated, bro. You feel what I'm saying? He didn't give me a chance. He told me I'm gonna come to a gun battle. I came to link him to see what the fuck the status was about. He pulls out. He tries to chest bump me. He tries to chest bump me and then pull out a gun for self-defense. He's a pussy boy. Give me an illness standing in between while he's trying to shoot me. He didn't give me no seconds, bro. This shit happened like that. And I got it all on camera. You don't want that, like, trust me. He's stupid. He did it all on camera, champ.
Again, consistent. I didn't know I was walking into a gun battle. I didn't bring a weapon. What does he do to me, though? He tries to chest bump me, and then he shoots at me.
After Przelomiec, Tacopina gave his close that I think lasted about 6 hours in total. And as to be expected, he focused in on Relli's credibility.
He didn't once mention the fact that their only witness in this case committed perjury again and again and again and again in this court. That wasn't mentioned once. I'm not going to go through every inconsistency of Mr. Ephron. We'll be here until Christmas. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through the major lies he told, the admissions of perjury, the important facts that he told you that turned out to be lies. Was that this case was about Relli's jealousy, lies, and greed. I said that you'd see the kind of person he was in this courtroom, an angry pathological liar. That he, and he alone, is the source of all the evidence that they are relying on. And this case would rise and fall on his credibility. You take him out of the picture, there is no case. He's a man who told you without hesitation, I can tell people whatever I want. He's their witness. Well, you're being asked to believe beyond a reasonable doubt. I can tell people whatever I want.
And then during one of the breaks, the lawyers started going at it. The synopsis before I played the clip is that Prosecutor John Lewin claims that on day 12 and 13, Tacopina said that the prosecutors suborned perjury, or like convinced someone to lie under oath. Lewin made the objection in the moment, but the judge overruled it. So on this break, Lewin brings this back up, and at first it seemed kinda okay, but then it just went left.
Here's a quote on an objection you overruled. The prosecution accepts their witness committing perjury. It's improper, it's unethical, you've said you're not going to tolerate it, and I object, and you make it clear to the jury that my objection you find annoying. It's very clear that the tone that we get when we make an objection that should be sustained is, what are you doing? That's what was said. You specifically...
Lower your voice and don't yell at me. I told you before. I'll listen to what you say. Speak in a normal tone of voice.
Judge Arnold said, who you think you talking to?
Judge, we're doing the best we can to make sure that this trial is ethically conducted. They have repeated, I've objected, you told them it's improper. You've overruled repeated objections where they are saying improper things. I don't know if you didn't hear it.
I didn't hear that.
So, Judge,
What I heard, I could have been wrong, what I heard was that Mr. Tacopina was describing Relli as committing perjury.
Judge, that's a direct quote. The direct quote was, the prosecution accepts their witness committing perjury. The bigger issue, as I said, is the court repeatedly told them, do not connect the prosecution to committing perjury.
I'll tell you what, I didn't hear that. I'm going to ask Kathy for the exact quote. If that's what was said, I'm going to sustain your objection, and I will apologize for overruling.
Judge, can I respond, please, on that one issue? Not everything else you said. What I said was, and I agree with what I said, but understand the context of it, okay? I didn't say this more perfect. I didn't say it yesterday, I didn't say it today. The one thing I said, and it was very common, was the prosecution accepts their witness committing perjury. And what I mean by that is in regards to one thing, and it's indisputable, Your Honor. It was regarding Relli saying the tape was fake. The tape was fake. They got up, cross-examining Mr. Sajemi, did not ask him if the tape was fake or not. Okay? They then put up transcripts of that tape recording with attributions to Mr. Ephron. So that means by that, just by that very fact, they accept the fact that he committed perjury. I'm not saying they suborn it, but they accept that witness committed perjury. They have to. Let me finish. There's no other way for them to move forward unless they say that wasn't perjury, but it was because he said that was fake. We know that wasn't fake. It was real. That was perjury. So by then moving forward with it, arguing that the tape is important for the prosecution, that Ephron said these things, what it is doing is accepting it. That's fair comment, Your Honor. It's not inappropriate. It wasn't disparaging counsel. I just said they accepted, and that is true. That there's no other way around it.
It is not fair comment. It is completely unethical.
Oh,
I agree with you.
So, Your Honor,
I agree with you.
What's frightening is Mr. Tacopina just stood up here and basically defended and said, yeah, I said it, but I can say it. He doesn't know or care about the law. Your Honor, it's not appropriate. It's completely unethical. It is immoral, and it's not professional. And again, Your Honor, the fact that he is getting up here saying, yeah, I said it, here's why, just demonstrates again he doesn't know the law or doesn't care.
You're disparaging him right now.
I'm disparaging him because, Your Honor, he's not following the
There is not to be any disparaging of either side.
During an argument, the jury's not here. I have every right, obligation, and duty to stand up here and point out when he is being unethical. The first time the court catches me being unethical, Your Honor, the court knows. That'll be the first time. Court knows I don't do that.
Oh,
Court knows. Court's already made.
I've heard enough from both of you. I missed the prosecution accepts their witness committing perjury. I don't think that's fair comment on the evidence. I think that's an improper statement. It infers that the prosecution is allowing perjury to occur. I'm going to sustain your objection, and I'm going to apologize for overruling it, and then move on to it.
I just want to put on the record that these remarks about being unethical, I just about had it with him. This from a lawyer who, and I just stayed yesterday on it. This from a lawyer who asked in front of a jury for a stipulation that a shooting range was not in California when either he knew it was in California or had no idea that it was in California. Okay, so he literally asked for a stipulation in front of a jury that he knew was not true or didn't know if it was true, and that's unethical. That's unethical. And this is a guy who, the Ninth Circuit just said lied to a jury in the Brantford case.
Your Honor,
so
Your Honor,
about him.
One more thing out of him, and we air everything that's happened in this case.
Why are both of his hands up like that? Also, air it out. We want to know.
One more thing out of him, and we air everything that's happened in this case.
Now, why did he say ooh like that?
Case, which the court's aware of.
Stop.
He might want to stop.
I'm so threatened.
You should be, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a break.
This trial is so very serious and also very unserious, all at the same time.
You should be.
Don't tell the courts told me I was a liar.
Hold on the whole time. Hey!
Oh, yeah. I'm so scared of you.
Stop it!
And just so we're clear, I was in the courtroom for this, and it took everything in me not to laugh out loud. Because what are y'all grown asses doing? And no, the jury was not in the courtroom for this chaos. After the break, the judge did apologize and correct his mistake.
When I make a mistake, I own it. I have no problem admitting when I made a mistake, and I made a mistake, and I'm going to tell you what the mistake was. Mr. Tacopina mentioned, and I missed this, the prosecution accepts their witness committing perjury. I missed that. There was an objection. I overruled it. I didn't hear the whole statement. I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything improper, but that statement puts the prosecutors in an unfair light. And that was improper. I overruled the objection. I should have sustained it. I don't want any side being disparaged or being put in a false light. So I made that mistake. I own it. I apologize. Thank you.
Do y'all like this judge? I think I like this judge. After Tacopina, Lewin did the final close. Andy said a lot of what was already said, so I won't do a recap on most of it, but I do want to highlight that he brought up Rihanna and Rocky's 2 children coming to court.
But this is really important. Relli can kick the defendant's ass all day, okay? That's clear.
That clip didn't have to do with the kids coming to court. I just wanted to add that in there because why did he say that? Okay, now here's the clips about the kids.
And I'm going to bring up something that's really important. The defendant is a celebrity. His wife's an even bigger celebrity. Many of you know who they are. They brought in 2 adorable children yesterday for closing argument. Now, they haven't been here at any other time. And you have to ask yourselves, those kids have a right to be here. Why children that age would be here in a situation like this, don't know. And Mr. Tacopina made it very clear. If you notice in closing today, he literally brought up Rihanna, he brought up the defendant's family, and he basically was saying, hey, listen, if you convict him, it's going to be very difficult on the family. That is not something you are allowed to consider. You are not allowed to consider how this might affect Rihanna or his kids. And I want to make sure that no matter how successful he is, how famous his wife is, how cute his kids are, how much they giggle here during closing arguments, that you guys are not going to say, you know what? We're going to give him a little extra. He needs to be treated like you would treat any other person. Because in the end, that's all that he is entitled to.
Again, as a person who was in the courtroom, I can tell you that Rocky was visibly upset by these comments. Visibly. The judge eventually made a ruling about them.
Mr. Lewin, you made reference to Rihanna being in the courtroom and the kids being in the courtroom. The manner in which you did it, I don't think was improper. However, the balance of your argument from here on out, there is to be no mention of Rihanna being in the courtroom or the kids being in the courtroom.
Just them not being in the courtroom, like you mentioned, here's the problem, Your Honor. The defense got up at the end of the court, and they talked about the impact of this case on Rihanna.
I said in the courtroom.
Oh, just don't mention it in the
Do
courtroom.
not mention, again, Rihanna being in the courtroom or the babies being in the courtroom. There should be no mention of that.
So the judge says there was nothing improper about what Lewin said, but he did direct him to not mention the kids and Rihanna being in the courtroom anymore. Okay, last thing is the jury instructions were not streamed, but I want to talk about a few of my takeaways from them and what the jury will be deliberating about. First of all, Rocky has 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. One count is for the incident in the parking garage, and the other count is for the incident in the alley or parking lot or whatever that area was. And for each of these incidents, the jury has to decide if Rocky had a real gun or a prop gun. If the state did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the gun was real, then the juries would vote not guilty and Rocky would be acquitted. But if the juries do believe the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the gun was real, they then can go on to consider self-defense. They would have to answer the question of, did Rocky pull the real gun as a way to defend himself or in the defense of others? So if the jury finds that Rocky acted in self-defense, the vote could still be not guilty. However, if the jury believes that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Rocky had a real gun, that he pulled it, and it was not in the defense of himself or others, they would vote guilty. And to be clear, for this particular charge, an injury is not required.
But there's a whole host of things that we do not have to prove in this case. The law tells you we do not have to prove. That the defendant even touched Mr. Ephron. Mr. Ephron doesn't have to be injured in any way. The defendant does not even have to fire his gun for this crime to be completed. He doesn't even have to point it directly at Mr. Ephron. The moment the defendant pulled that gun out, armed himself, and was capable of inflicting injury on Mr. Ephron, that crime was completed at that moment.
So at the end of the day on Friday, this case was turned over to the jury. The jury is made up of 7 women and 5 men, and they will begin deliberating on Tuesday morning. So tell me, how are y'all feeling? Leave your comments on these 3 things. What do you believe actually happened? Number 2, if you think the state has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And number 3, what you think the verdict should be. Not what you think it's going to be, what you think the verdict should be. I guess I'll be back after the verdict.